Hello. How are you all doing? Let me know if you can hear me. Just let me know in the chat. You can just say hello, where you're calling in from, while I get things set up. And I'll just give also a few minutes for people to jump right in. If you're just joining and you can hear me, let me know. Let me know where you're calling in from. Hello, Melissa from Northern Virginia. Yeah, I think you're on a previous live stream, right? So welcome. All right, that's good. All right. So I'm just gonna give a few minutes so people can join, and then we'll get started soon. Let's say we'll get started in 2 minutes. By the way, if you're just joining, just say hello in the chat and where you're calling in from. My name is Mukhtar. I'm calling in from Toronto, Canada. By the way, if you're just joining, welcome to the show. We're going to be talking about the PM job search, how we can get you unstuck. If you're just joining, um, let us know where you're calling in from. And we're going to get started in 1 minute. All right. All right. So I have the questions here. And oh yeah, by the way, do feel free to leave your questions in the chat too, and I'll get to them. But I'm gonna try to go through the questions that I had in the event, because like those are questions that tend to come up. And then if you do have your own questions, put them in the chat and I will try to get to them. All right. Alrighty. So it is 12:20. All right, let's get started. Hello everyone. My name is Mukhtar. And for those of you that don't know who I am, I've been in the program project management space for over 15 years, and I've worked in several industries. I've worked in oil and gas. I've worked in real estate. I've worked in healthcare. And I've worked in tech, and I've worked at in different positions: business analyst, project manager, product manager, program manager. I've led teams. So I've lived and worked in many countries. So I've been around, as they say. And yeah, right now I am a PM career coach, and I help PMs land 100 to 300k PM roles. All right. So without further ado, let's get started. All right. So the first question is, why does it feel like you're doing everything right, but nothing is working? All right. So there are a couple of things. The job search, I like to say that for the job search to work for you, you need a full strategy. And this is a complete strategy, and there are multiple steps that I can go into for the job search to work. what I see people doing is maybe they're just doing one thing. Like, okay, I'm just tailoring my resume, optimizing my resume. I'm just doing that over and over and over again. And I'm just doing that more. And I'm expecting that things will be different, right? So, when it comes to effort, you are not skimping on effort. You're doing a lot, but you're not seeing the results that you get. Now, what I usually advise people to do is to treat the job search like a funnel, right? And be methodical about it, right? So there are two funnels in the job search. There's the recruitment funnel, and then there is your own funnel, right? The job seekers funnel. So let's talk about the recruitment funnel. So on average, one job receives on average, this was according to a study done by Ashby, over 300 applications, right? And this is a lot more when you're considering remote roles, or depending on the company, salary, etc. Right? I know some jobs receive all the way up to thousands of applications. Okay, so at the very top of the funnel is 300 applications. Let's just use that number. The next stage of the funnel is interviews. On average, about 6 to 10 people are invited for an interview for every job, right? So from 300, it goes down to 6 to 10. Okay. And then out of those 6 to 10, one gets an offer. So that's the recruitment funnel. 300, 10, let's just say 10, 300, 10, 1. That's the recruitment funnel. 300, 10, 1. That is a 0.003% chance that you will get a job when you apply. Okay, so that's one thing that you're going to think of, that you need to think about. And now, when you hear that stat, there's a 0.003% chance that you're going to land a role that you apply for. Now, I don't want that to discourage you, because if you use the right, with the right strategy, you can really increase your odds. And we're gonna, I'm gonna try to cover, some of these, and feel free to ask me any follow-up questions in the chat, and we can delve deeply into that. Okay, so that's the recruitment funnel. Now, what is the candidate funnel? The candidate funnel is applications, interviews, and offers as well, right? But you can also even break it down some more. Applications, first interview, which is like the recruiter round, subsequent, like the middle round, final round, and then the offer, right? So you can have a 5-layered funnel. Now, what I want you to do is to think about, where do you tend to get stuck in your funnel? Because I've been doing this for a long time. People tend to get stuck at different points in the funnel. There are some people that are applying, they're in layer number 1, and they cannot get the first interview with the recruiter. So that is a positioning problem. Okay. Now, there are other people that they get to the first round, the recruiter round, but they cannot move to subsequent rounds. Then so you're not really having a positioning problem now. Maybe you're getting lots of interviews, but now your interviewing skills, like your positioning within the interview, or your persuasion skills, need to be worked on. All right. And also, where in the, some people, they clear the recruiter round, but they tend to get stuck at the middle rounds. Or some people, clear the middle rounds, but they usually lose out on the final round, right? And then now you need to get even more creative. Like, why is it that I'm always losing? So it means that you're good, but for some reason you're always second best or third best, right? So there's another strategy for that. And then there's the offer, right? So if it feels like, oh my goodness, I'm doing a lot, so you need to take a step back and see, where are you stuck? And then you now tackle that obstacle, right? To try to get you to the next part of the funnel. All right. Yeah. So, and then another thing that I should say is, when you're applying, you want to you want to try to get a 5 to a 20% conversion rate when you apply for a job, right? So if you apply to 20 jobs, ideally in this market, between 5 to 20% of them should convert to an interview, which is 1 to 6. All right. If that's not happening, then it means that there are things that need to be worked on from a positioning standpoint. It could be that, are you applying on time? Right? There's so many people, like I mentioned, back to the funnel. So many people apply for jobs. Sometimes it goes all the way to thousands. Recruiters cannot go through all the resumes. So are you applying on time? That's one. Are you applying to roles that you're a pretty good match for, and not applying for roles that are a stretch? That's also something to take into account. When you do apply, are you really speaking to the main pain points of the hiring manager? That's also something. And is that very clear in your resumes, in your maybe portfolio? Like, are you making that absolutely clear? And when you make that clear, are you supporting how you've solved that problem in the past with actual results in your resume? So that's also something that you can do. And then when you do apply, are you reaching out? Because in this job market, if you just apply and you do nothing, you're wasting your time. Like, this is what we see. So you need to not only apply, but then follow up right away. Follow up with people on the inside, hiring manager, recruiter, maybe a pair, somebody above the hiring manager. Like, these are things that would help you get a response. And if you don't hear back, do a follow-up, because they're really very busy, and you can do another follow-up. And then if you don't hear back, that's it. So following that, usually you should get like the 5 to a 20% conversion rate. More than happy to answer more questions there. Hello, Khanilsa from South Africa. Wow, South Africa. It's amazing. Hey, hello, Mubashir from Pakistan. Hello, Raymond from Chicago. Nice. All right. So next question. The biggest mistakes that PMs make without realizing it. And I think I've already started speaking about that. So I think it's really doubling down on like things like applications. Applications are not wrong, but you should do it well. And you want to make sure that you are, it's kind of like, you are running, you need to make sure you're running in the right direction. All right. Because you're motivated. So one thing is that a lot of PMs in the market don't have a motivation problem. They don't have an experience or an ability problem. But what I see a lot is that they have a strategy problem, right? So it's kind of like, all right, people are just running, but you're running in the wrong direction. So you want to make sure that you're running in the right direction, and then you can run as fast as you can. All right. So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes, is like, all right, it's a numbers game. I just need to apply more, or I just need to go get education, right? Or I just need to get, it's a tough market. I'm not denying that, but companies still need people. They still have problems, because the companies need to survive. They cannot survive without people. So they have problems and they need people. And you can even see like their jobs on the market. Why not you? You should be able to get those jobs, right? And we're seeing people get jobs regularly. Okay. So these are some of the big mistakes that I see people making. Wow, another person from South Africa. Amazing. Nohlana. I probably butchered your name. Sorry about that. Wow. That's really amazing. Wonder what the weather is like right now in South Africa. what's the weather like now in South Africa? Right now we are like we are in the spring that's camouflaging as the winter. It's May and it should be warm right now, but it's like cold outside. I don't know what's wrong. Yeah. Yeah, I usually get jealous when it's winter here and it's like nice and sunny in the southern hemisphere. Yeah. All right. What does a strong PM job search actually look like? All right. So I think we're going back to some of like what I talked about. Like, you know, a strong PM job search is really about having a strategy, right? Oh, okay. So now, yeah, let's talk about the strategy. I don't think I really talked about the strategy. So for you to for you to succeed in this job market, you need a complete strategy, and there are 5 steps to the strategy. Number 1 is clarity. Number 2 is positioning. Number 3 is the hidden job market. Number 4 is interviewing, and number 5 is negotiations. Right. So this is how you land a 100 to 300K PM role in this market. This is what we're seeing working over and over again. I'm just going to speak about them briefly. Clarity. You need to be clear on what your skills are and what the market is demanding, right? Is that intersection that will make you valuable on the market, right? The job search, the job market is a market, right? It's driven by supply and demand. It's not as efficient, but it's still driven by supply and demand. And this is where your strategy comes in, is to try to get you to the people that need your services as soon as possible and as efficiently as possible, right? So that's clarity. And one thing that I would mention on the clarity angle is, you know, I know the job search can be very emotionally draining, tasking. You have bills to pay probably, or you have people that you need to take care of, or maybe you're just burnt out, like in your current place of work, or you're in a toxic place, right? And you just need to make the move right now. Or, you know, you're just tired, you're bored, you're not challenged, right? So a lot of times people are they're not in the greatest of states when they're searching, right? And that can just cause you to be like, all right, you know what, I just need something. Like, and actually, I'm also very experienced. I have a diverse set of experiences. So I can be a technical manager, I can be a project manager, I can be a program manager, I can be a business development manager, I can be a sales. Like, yeah, I just want the next thing, right? Now, when you do that, that would hurt your chance of getting that 100 to 300K role, right? Or that next role that you're looking for, because you are going to be people are going to be confused about who you are, right? In where you have a sea of people, where you're competing with like so many other people, the person who's going to be looking at you, like, they want to make sure that they're taking as much as possible a risk-free investment, right? So it should be like, well, this candidate was made for me, right? So you want to narrow that down as much as possible. So this is where clarity comes into play, right? So you want to be clear on what you can offer and what the market is demanding. And then so that's number 1. And then positioning. So when you're clear on your target, then now it comes to positioning. How do you now position yourself for what you're targeting, right? Because, you know, you contain multitudes, as they say. You can do so many things, right? You're not just your profession, right? But you need to be able to just put forth what the market needs from you, right? And de-emphasize all the other things, right? So how are you showing up in your resume? How are you showing up on your LinkedIn? How are you showing up in your portfolio? How are you showing up in your applications, right? So all of these things need to tell a compelling and a consistent story, right? And maybe even like I should add clear. So clear, compelling, consistent. It should be like, all right, I know who this person is. I know who I know what Prashant is about. I know what Ellen is about. I know what Khanilsa is about, right? Sorry if I'm butchering your name. Like, all right, I get it. Yeah, you are a cloud project manager. You're a Salesforce program manager. You're an M&A, or you're a program manager with a variety of experiences. You've done M&A, infrastructure migration. You've also done process improvement. Like, it should be clear, um, what you are about. Okay, so this is positioning. And of course, positioning is also the kind of roles that you target, how are you applying, and what I talked about, reaching out and all of that. And then the third is the hidden job market. So they say most jobs are not published. Most jobs are hidden, and they're filled by word of mouth. Some people say 60 to 80%. Some people say, it might be fewer than that. But the hidden job market does exist. One thing that I would say is that there are jobs that are not published at all. Like, one of the jobs that I got was created for me. It was never published. And when I got in there, my teammates were like, I didn't know we needed anybody. But my boss created, because I interviewed with him. Yeah, it's an interesting story. Maybe I can share that. So there was this company that I really wanted to get into, and I did my research. I did networking. I really just researched this company, and then I finally got an interview after trying for a long time. I got an interview with this company, and they really liked me, so they interviewed me like back to back. I think I did like 6-7 interviews in 1 week. I didn't end up getting the job. They went with somebody else. And then, like, the recruiter called me to give me like bad news. Hey, you know what? I'm sorry, we really liked you, but you didn't get the job. But I have something interesting for you. So, in the panel interview that you did, there was somebody else that was there. Let's call him Fred. So Fred actually really likes you, and he wants you on his team. So in the panel interview that I did, there was the hiring manager. I remember she was sitting in front of me. Fred was sitting to the left of me, and then there was a recruiter, to the right of me. Right, so this was like a conference room table, like long. I still remember that. And so yeah, and also, one interesting thing is, when I was in the interview, Fred was a pain. Like, so panel interviews are nerve-wracking, right? Interviews are nerve-wracking. Then the panel interviews, like, you are the center of attention. Everybody, people are asking you questions. Somebody's asking questions. Like, all eyes are on you, right? But this Fred was just like, how you're like, why are you asking me all this tough? Like, it's like he was trying to get me, trying to trip me. The other person, the hiring manager, was nice, and I was like, all right, I felt easy with her. It felt easy with her. But Fred was really like, you didn't answer my question, like, and I was just like, all right, yeah, you know what, this Fred guy, all right. So anyway, the interview went, and then now back to the story. The recruiter called me, like, they went with somebody else who has like better experience, a closer match, blah blah blah. But it was like, the interesting thing is that Fred really liked you, and he wants you on his team. I was like, are you kidding me? I thought that guy hated my guts, right? And then he created a position for me on his team. And when I came in, like, people, my peers didn't even know that, or they were surprised. Like, I didn't know we needed somebody. And then, like, that's how I got into that company. So one lesson from here is, when you're in an interview and you're going to meet those very grumpy, like, those people, just try to maintain your energy. Like, just try, like, it's 30 minutes. Just, they hit you with, like, they don't want to be there, like, just try to maintain it. And I think I did that, and yeah, I think I had a good impression on him, and yeah, I was with him for about 4 or 5 years. Yeah. So, how did I get into this story? Oh my goodness. Yes, the hidden job market. Was that what I was talking about? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So step 3. So step 1 is clarity. Step 2 is positioning. Step 3 is the hidden job market. And they say most jobs are not published, or So a lot of jobs are not published. And even for the ones that are published, a lot of times that role might be earmarked for somebody else. Or maybe another way of saying this is, if you just apply, you don't really stand a fair chance of landing that job, right? Which ties back to what I mentioned, at the beginning of the call. Like, make sure you apply early. Make sure that you apply to a role whereby you're a good match for, like a 75% match or above. Make sure you follow up like right away. Send a message to the recruiter, to the hiring manager, to a peer, to somebody, maybe somebody above in leadership, right? And then after that, follow up within 3 business days. And then after that, follow up again within 3 business days. And when you now do this, you greatly increase your chance of being considered for the role, right? Because a lot of people are just applying. People are using AI, just shooting resumes all over the place. And many resumes will not be read, right? But this actually gives you a better chance, right? So this is step 3, which is the hidden job market. And step 4 is interviewing. So interview like the top 10%. This is what I normally tell my clients and teach my mentees. You need to interview like the top 10%. So remember, going back to the recruitment funnel, 300 applications, 10 people are chosen for interview, 1 person is given an offer, right? I want you to always have that picture. 300, 10, 1. 10 people are invited for an interview. So when you get invited to an interview, even though it's you on one side and the hiring manager on the other side, know that hiring manager is interviewing probably 9 other people. So why should they choose you? You need to be the top 10%, right? So you need to be the 1 in 10 that they're going to choose. You need to make it so that they will be a fool not to hire you. Like, the investment is just, it makes sense. This $200,000, this $300,000, this $150,000, this is where I need to invest my money, right? Because not only do you have the skills, the experience, but you also exude the warmth, and it seems like you're going to be a good fit for our culture, right? So that's step 5 and step 4. And then step 5 is negotiations. A lot of PMs leave money on the table. A lot. Like, this is common. It's very easy for you to get. So with one email, you can easily get $10,000 to $20,000 extra, just with one email. And I see this a lot, but many people are usually scared, like, oh my goodness, it took me so long to get this job. I don't want to wreck it, and yeah, you imagine what $20,000 can do for you. Yeah, that's like, I don't know, 2 vacations, 3 vacations. Well, it depends on where you go. Yeah. You can buy 1 car, down payment for a house, rent it out. Yeah. So yeah, it's easy for you to get that, because there are a couple of things. You are, when you're positioning yourself, like, you're making all these claims, leadership, I can manage stakeholders, I can negotiate as a project man. When it now comes time to advocate for yourself, oh, you're scared, right? So many times companies give you that first figure expecting that you're going to negotiate. So they don't give you the top, because if they give you the top, they know if you negotiate, then they can't really satisfy you, right? So they give themselves a bit of room, right? So especially if you're coming in and saying, you know what, I am going to trust me with this program, with this project. I'm going to be able to wrangle all the stakeholders. I'm going to be able to hold my own with senior leadership, right? But now when it comes to negotiating for yourself, you don't do that, right? So this is also one of the ways to let them know that they've not made the mistake with choosing you, right? That's another way to look at it. Also, another way to look at it is also, maybe imagine that this is your friend, or a very close friend of yours that got the role, like, and you are now advocating for that person, right? Yeah, so this is one big mistake that I see a lot of people make. And one of the key things to keep in mind is, when you are negotiating, you want to you want to you need to strike the right balance. So first of all, you're not negotiating with a car salesperson, right? Yeah, so it's not the, I'm going to try to screw you over, because you're going to be working with these people. Right? So you need to keep in mind, so it's not an adversarial type of, me versus you. It's more like, okay, how can we both of us be happy? I know, win-win. You hear, I know it sounds cliche, but the important point that I want to make is you are negotiating with people that you're going to be working with, right? And on top of that, the tone that you should strike is one of confidence, politeness, and gratitude, right? So you're very grateful that out of all the 300 people, they chose you. You're honored. They see something in you. Like, there's that politeness, there's the gratitude, but you're also confident, right? At the end of the day, you're a company of one. You're bringing your skills to the table, right? And you're going to deliver value. Like, you're going to take them to the finish line, right? And that is worth a lot in the market, right? So it's that balancing act, like, and that is the attitude that you take. Like, it's servant leadership, it's humility. Like, that is one of the most effective ways to lead. Like, you know your stuff, you have this confidence, but you're humble, you respect everybody else, and like that combination is deadly in a nice way. Yeah. By the way, ask questions put your questions in the chat. And oh yes, so I think maybe it's time for a bit of a commercial break. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe. It just helps us. It's free for you, and it helps us out. If you're watching this on Substack, do subscribe. If you're listening to this on Apple and Spotify, give us a 5-star rating if you like this. All right. And if you need help landing 100 to 300K PM role, we might be able to help you. So just look around this video or audio, wherever you're listening to this, and you should see a link there. It will take you to a short form for you to fill. And if you're an initial fit, you'll be able to book a free call with somebody on my team. We have limited spots, but if we can help you, we'll let you know what the next steps are. All right. All righty. Let's go to the questions on the chat. Hey, Prashant, joining from Mississauga. Hello, we are neighbors. All right, very cold in South Africa, hey? Nice. All right, so question from Ellen. As an older, well-seasoned PM, I find it hard to get through the door. I've started to send targeted cover letters to hiring managers, which is starting to get a bit more interest. Yep. But what else can you suggest for a senior person fighting ageism? Yeah, bias. This is unfortunate. Yeah. So a couple of things. Yeah, the bias does exist. I've worked with people who face this and have successfully landed roles. So a couple of things that I would say is, number one, we want to get you through the door, right? So going back to the funnel, you're thinking about where you stuck. So number one, we want to get you through the door. We want you to be getting interviews often, especially with your experience. And one of the things that people do is when they are intimidated by your experience on paper, that can work against you sometimes. So you want to make sure that you are not appearing to be overqualified, right? Because the company will also see that as a risk. Like, okay, will this person stick around? Are we going to be able to, will the job be stimulating enough for this person? Will this person be happy at their job? So you want to be at the level of the position that you're hiring for. Not saying like dumb yourself down, but you still want to be competitive, but don't be way above Like for example, if you're applying for a project manager role, program manager role, and you've built companies, if your resume is founder, yeah, people might be intimidated by that, right? You're probably operating at a level, maybe three levels above the person who's going to be hiring you, and that person might not feel like you will be happy under them, right? So that's one thing that we want to make sure that you're targeting the role at the right level. Another thing that people advise, and that I also help my clients with, is in your resume you don't want to go past 15 years. Anything that goes past that, like, you can take it out, right? The resume is not supposed to be a history document. The resume is a marketing document, right? And its job is just to get you through the door. I think sometimes we forget that. So it's not a history, it's not a historical document, it is a marketing document, and it's responding to the job description. So that's also something that you can do. And when you take out anything past 15 years, it can lessen the age bias. Another thing is that you can also remove dates, graduation dates on your resumes if you haven't done that. So these are some things that you can do. And also, when you do apply, follow the rules of like reaching out. Like, so it's good that you're customizing your cover letter, but also reach out and essentially, like, those out, like when you send an email to the hiring manager, in a way it's kind of like a cover letter. So one thing I'll really emphasize is don't just work the process and and just wait. Like, that used to work maybe 2-3 years ago, but in this market it doesn't. So don't just work the process and the best and the most the best candidate will sort of rise to the top. It doesn't quite work that way because of volume. So you want to make sure that you reach out individually to all these people after you apply. Now, when it comes to the interview, I mean, they're going to see you, right? Some people, yeah, I mean, some people, like, people always have bias against how you sound, bias on first impressions, right? How you sound, how you look, your weight, your age, height. Well, I guess with Zoom and Google, we're all the same heights, but in person, your height. So there's always going to be all these biases. So what you want to do is you want to just, without necessarily being inauthentic, you want to maybe help people not overcome this bias, but you want to present yourself in the best possible light. Okay, so one of the things that's very good for you to do is to be emotionally intelligent, right? So if you know that this person is thinking, all right, is this person going to be tech savvy, and this is a tech savvy role, you emphasize that and you address that in the interview, or you address that with your artifacts, or both, right? You always address the elephant. If you think that this person will be worried about maybe you coming over to take their job, give them your career history of how you've worked with you're a loyal person. You actually, in your previous role, you worked for 5 years with this person and all of that, and what were you able to do, etc. Right? So whatever you feel like they're feeling or might be thinking, you try to dispel that. And this is what salespeople call objections, right? So whenever the interview is a sales conversation, in a way, because so whenever you come into the interview, people have objections because right now they're about to make a transaction. Money is about to exchange hands, and when money is going to exchange hands, like, people need to make sure that, all right, objections will come up, like people now get critical and all of that. So you want to try to address those objections. If you're going to a role and you know that, okay, there's this one area that's a gap, then you want to take control of the narrative. All right. So these are some things that you can do. One person that we helped, who also faced this, one of the things that he did, it was that I think he was in the IT space, and he was applying for the IT role, and he's also, like, on his free time, he plays around with different technologies and all of that, and all of that was in his resume. Like he was building agents and all of this, so he was always sort of um, he was always keeping it. And by the way, like some of the most technical people I've seen are like older people. Like one of my mentors, I should say, he's like silverhead. He's the most technical person. So like this thing of the old people, like you're not as I don't know if you can handle AI and all. Like to me, I've seen the opposite actually. So yeah, but unfortunately those biases exist. So you want to try as much as possible in a way that's tasteful to dispel whatever objections that you think that they have. What else? Yeah, and I think maybe one thing to also add there is, if you know that they're going to be concerned about, all right, would you work well with the team and all of that, you can just address the element like, you know what, I'm actually at the point in my career where I don't want to be the CEO. I don't want to be that. Like I just truly enjoy the art and science of project management and supporting. So I think that I have a lot to bring to the table, and I am, something like that. You can say it in a way that sounds authentic to you and that sounds nice. All right. I hope that helped. All right. All right. Hello, Vikas from Houston, Texas. I lived in Houston for about a year. Oh, nice. I'm seeing people are like connecting on the chat. Yeah, this is also something to mention. Yeah, so the PM role can be a lonely one. I know it's felt that way for me, and we don't always get a chance to connect. So please do, like, these are very nice spaces for us to connect, and a lot of our struggles are the same. Yeah, a lot of the struggles, trust me, a lot of the struggles that we face are dealing with stakeholders, people that don't value what you do and all. So this is a good chance for you to connect. And one of the beautiful things about connecting is that your network increases in value with time, right? People that I connected with 6 years ago, 10 years ago, like they're now like in much more influential positions in their company. So it's always good to just connect. I'm not saying that's the reason why you should connect. I mean, like, you can connect for just, being a good human being, but there's no downside, I think, to connecting. I think. Right. All right. So hello, Daniel. Hello, Juan from Northern Virginia. Wow. 2 people from Northern Virginia today. Hello, Larabe. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Hey, Mukhtar, any good suggestions on building meaningful network relationships? Wow. Okay. We just talked about that. Nice. I did not see that coming. So this is one way I connect with people here. One thing that I would also suggest is you want to have like maybe your list of your top 10 to 15 companies, right? And if you have those, now you now want to start finding potential advocates on the inside of each one of those companies. And what's an advocate? An advocate is somebody who's going to be on the inside that can advocate for you and speak on your behalf, right? So if a job comes up, they will be able to maybe message the hiring manager. They will be able to maybe put in a referral for you. Excuse me. Yeah, so that's what you want to do. And there's also, as PMs, you put the plan together, right? You have a system. So for each company, maybe you identify 5 people per company, right? So this will be a total of 50 to 75 people. And you want to now try to start connecting with them one by one. One thing that I would say is don't try to reach out to 5 people at once in one company. Maybe reach out to one person in each company first, all the way down. And the reason is because if you try to reach out to 5 people in one company at once, people in companies talk to each other, right? So it can now end up backfiring against you. So you do one all across the board, and then if you don't hear back, maybe in 3 to 5 business days or something, you move on to the next 2. If you don't hear back, you move on. Like, and also while you're doing this, also send a reminder to the people in batch 1, right? Maybe after, I don't know, 7 days or something, you send a reminder to the people in batch 1, because most times people will not respond to you the first time. And it's not because it's not you, it's just that like maybe they were going to get to it, but it never, yeah. So a lot of responses come in the follow-ups, right? And you just do 2 follow-ups. If you don't hear back, you move on, right? So you just walk your way through this 50 to 75 people, and you are gonna, all you need is one person in each company, right? And with a 20% conversion rate, I mean, that might seem like a lot of rejections, but all you need is one person, an advocate on the inside. And once you have that person, you're good. You just keep up the relationship, send, just check up on them here and there. And the idea is that you want to just get, so when you're starting out, a couple of things to keep in mind. In order to increase in order to reduce your rejection rate and to increase your response rate, the more that you have in common with somebody, the likely it is that they would respond to you, right? So you can look at, look for people that maybe are from the same country as you, the same hometown. Maybe they came from, you have the same alma mater, you're from the same university, you're from the same former workplace, you're from the same former industry. Maybe somebody pivoted from oil and gas to healthcare. I remember when I wanted to pivot from oil and gas to healthcare, there was somebody who was at a very high level in healthcare, and the person also worked. He worked in one of the oil companies, and that was just a nice. What's the word now? Connection point, right? And this was somebody who was about to retire in the healthcare space, and so he had also made the transition. So he saw me in him, or he saw himself in me. Oh, sorry, I need my coffee now. But basically, I reminded him of him, if that makes sense. Yeah. And other than that, we didn't really have anything in common, like, different races and all of that. So you want to look for people that have things in common, and just the more things you have in common, the easier it is for the person to respond. All right. So you want to keep that in mind when you're reaching out to the potential advocates on the inside. And then, the goal is that you want to get to have a 15-minute chat with them. It could even be 10 minutes, right? So, but don't and don't ask for a job, right? Because that tends to put people off. But it's just, but also don't try to be sneaky, because some people can, they know that, all right, you're looking for, so, but just be authentic about it. Like, this is actually I'm curious about this company, and I've seen that you've been working here for X number of years. We just like to know what your experience is and all of that. And a lot of people are willing to help, and especially like when they see, and many people want to help. Many people, like, they're looking for opportunities to contribute, and especially when they see that you have something in common with them, it increases the chance that they would respond to you, right? But the end goal for each one of those contacts is to get like a 15-minute chat. And once you have that, like, it just opens up a lot of doors, because you have a nice conversation with them and be like, you know what, a lot of times they would actually offer it. This has happened to me many times. Like, have you, somebody told me, have you looked at our website for roles? I'm like, yeah. He was like, okay, there are more roles. Apply. And once you apply, reach out to me. And I did that, reached out to him, and, I was able to get a role like that. All right. Okay. I hope I answered your question, Larabe. Hello, Vikas. Does the lack of buzzwords in interview answers make you come across as junior PMs when you're actually a senior PM? Good question. So I think it depends on the context. And I think this is also something. So the interview is a conversation, right? So I think sometimes we forget that, like, it's like one human being having a conversation with another human being. And the more human the interview is, the better the interview, right? So that's something we should keep in mind. But obviously, it's in a professional setting, right? So you need to demonstrate competence, right? And technical jargon exists for a reason, right? You cannot be it's a shorthand for meaning, if that makes sense. Like there's a reason why maybe you would say there's a reason why technical jargon exists, right? Because it contains, like, it explains very complex concepts, right? So instead of you explaining it every time, like you're explaining it to a 16-year-old, like you just use that one word. It's a shorthand, right? So, and also language is important. Like you need to language can exclude and it can include, right? It's amazing, like studying the psychology of this, like yeah. So I will give you, like, so I'm originally from Nigeria, and like in Nigeria you have some foreigners, right? So in Nigeria is like almost like what should I say, 100% black, like we're black. But then there are some people that are expatriates, right? So maybe they came from India, from Lebanon, from maybe Europe and all of that, and like they look not black, but when they open their mouths to speak, it's like my goodness, you're Nigerian. And like that is it, because they speak the language, it's like we're one, and this this happens in a lot of places as well. Like I met like because I've also lived in the US, like you have white people that have lived like with black people, and they sound African American, and like they're very close, so language has the ability to include and exclude, right? So going back to my point that you don't want to sound like an outsider, but you also don't want to overdo it as well, because like technical jargon and some of these buzzwords and all of that, like it's a type of language. All right. So you want to sound like an insider without overdoing it as well. Because you can also tell when somebody, maybe, if I'm from Colombia, for example, and somebody is coming and they're trying to sound, maybe they're trying to use Colombian Spanish. I know that if you can tell when somebody's faking it, right? It's a famous actor plays a role. I don't want to mention names, right? And like you're from, I don't know, Poland or something, and an American actor is playing a Polish hero, right? They couldn't find any person from Poland to play it, but they found this American person to play, and the person learns the Polish language and everything, and then the accent is not quite there, and you can tell right away, right? That would just sort of rub you the wrong way, right? So, something like that. Like you don't want to fake it, right? You want to be genuine and you want to be authentic about it, right? So to your question of buzzwords, like if it's just like, okay, buzzwords for the sake of buzzwords, you're not really exchanging meaning, then I will be cautious about that, right? But it doesn't mean now don't shy away from it, because in the interview you just have like 30 minutes to really make a case, right? So you want to demonstrate that you're competent. And one thing that I also, for the people that I work with, one thing that I advise them to do is that you want to be able to just give them a taste of what you are capable of. Like, for example, if they say, "Oh, tell me about prioritization," right? And you go, "Oh yeah, I mean, like this is something that's actually very critical in terms of execution," right? So it actually depends on the case, on the setting, but I have a range of different prioritization techniques that I use. I use Moscow Rice, impact effort matrix. I use, you can just briefly mention and give them a taste of what you have in your arsenal without necessarily diving into, and you're like, and then you can leave it up to them. Like, I'm more than happy to delve into any one of those if you want, right? And a lot of times we're like, no, yeah, I'm already convinced that you know your stuff. Let's move on, right? So you can give them a taste. So it's a balancing act. Again, the interview is a conversation, and as in the room, you can sort of feel the room and all of that. So just you don't want to overuse buzzwords, but you also want to convey meaning, and you want to convey that you're competent, right? I hope that answers your question, but let me know if it doesn't. Hello, Amar. What exact signals make an international employee immediately classify someone as senior strategic PM instead of just another engineering technical manager? That is a good question. So I think language, or speaking of language, you also need to be able to speak the language of leadership, right? And you need to be able to put yourself in their shoes and think like they do, because a lot of times, like they're thinking about revenue, strategy, how do we execute on this strategy, the priorities of the business. So a lot of times, like, one of the things that you can do is always just think about the person, your stakeholder, your key stakeholder who's going to be hiring you. Like, what are their top 3 or 4 pain points? What is their most, like, when you have that at the back of your mind, now just sort of speak through that lens, and that just really helps, for me, like, that has just really helped, just basically speak at their level, because I think a lot of times, like, one thing that I see with many people is that they default to low-level tasks. Oh yeah, I can facilitate this meeting, I can coordinate, I can book, like, all those easy things that make you seem like you're delivering value. I mean, you need to do those. You need to do those, but when it comes to, you need to sort of have a hierarchy. Like, what is really of value? What is of concern to my stakeholders, and speak their language. So I think like that is one thing that you can do. Yeah, and also if you are an engineer or a technical manager and you're trying to pivot, there's a good chance that you've led projects as well, even though you're not a project manager. So what you want to do is those projects that you led and you managed, like, what was the end result? What did they do for the company? Like, you want to be able to articulate things like that, because projects don't exist in a vacuum. All right. So because of this, then we actually we reduced downtime. We increased downtime from 99.1 to 99.999. Right. So what does that mean? Like, so maybe you can calculate what that would mean in terms of hours, or and is there a way to extrapolate what that means in terms of revenue? Because sometimes when in SLAs, in agreement, there might be credits tied to downtime, right? So if you're down for this much, this means that you owe the clients this amount. So you can work it out. And a lot of times, if you can work things out into dollars and cents, like, this is also a way to be strategic, because, like, at the end of the day, that's what people pay attention to, So that's also one easy shortcut, is to be able to translate whatever you're doing into revenue. Value really is it, but a lot of times value and revenue tend to be synonymous. All right. All right. Hello, Ellen. I've been a PM for 25 years and I've already cut down my resume to show the last 10 to 15 years. How aggressive should one be? I'm almost multi. So I think that's fine. 10 to 15 years is fine. How aggressive should one be? So I don't think you need to be more aggressive than that. I'm also multi-certified. Yeah, that's fine as well. But so if you have things like, and I've seen this, like, some people might have a PhD, like, so there are some things like that could intimidate. But I think if you have multiple certifications, like, that's fine, as long as it is in line with the roles that you're targeting. Also, another thing is that you also want to pay attention to the roles that you're targeting. So I don't know if you're targeting roles that are, way below your level, because there are different levels of PMs, right? You can be a project coordinator, you can be a manager, senior project manager, program manager, the lead program manager, staff program manager, chief of staff, right? Director of a PMO. So there's the IC route that can go all the way to the executive level, and then there's also the managerial route as well. So you want to make sure that you're targeting, the right level, and that experience will be an asset at the higher level, right? But if you're targeting maybe just a project manager role, 3 to 5 years experience, you might be seen as overqualified. Of course, I'm just speaking in general terms right now. All right. All right. How focused should one be? Okay, Melissa is asking how focused should one be? How focused should one be? I'm not sure I understand the question, but let me give it a stab. So going back to clarity and positioning, yeah. So I think that you don't want to be too broad, right? You don't want to be a project manager, you don't want to be a business development manager, you don't want to be a sales assistant, because like these are like varying fields. But you also don't want to be too niche, except that's what you really want. Like I want to be a cybersecurity project manager or a quantum computing project manager, right? So that is extremely niche. And by the way, I've seen somebody who wants that. Like they want to be a quantum computing program manager. That's what they studied, that's what they're passionate about, and that is what they want, right? And if that is what you're targeting, that's fine. But I think there is a middle ground, there where it's like, okay, maybe program management, or maybe just technical program management, or it could even be maybe program management and product management, right? I think like that is still good enough, or program management and project management and business analyst, right? Because if you notice with these things, like these two roles, there's a lot of overlap, because many people are indeed multifunctional and multi-skilled, so to speak, right? Or an engineering manager and a program manager, or a technical programmer. Like there's a lot of overlap between these roles. There's the domain knowledge, there is, when it comes to product and program management, there is stakeholder management, execution, risk management. So there's a lot of overlap. So it doesn't come across like you are just all over the place, right? So you wanna make sure that when it comes to focus, it doesn't come across like you're all over the place, and you also, I guess you also don't want to be too niche, except that's what you really want. Because if you're too niche, then you will not get as many opportunities as possible, right? So so I think the program management, project management niche is niched enough. But if you want to add on top of that, maybe product management, like, yeah, you can, but I wouldn't do more than that. All right. All righty. So we've gone through all the questions. This was fun. Yeah. So just gonna wrap up now. And yeah, so if you like this, even if you're watching this on LinkedIn as well, give it a thumbs up. Connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with other folks on LinkedIn. If you need help landing 100 to 300 KPM role, click on the link that you're going to be seeing around this video, or send me a DM, and we will be happy to see if we can help. If we can help, we'll let you know what the next steps are. If not, you will get free resources to help you with your job search. All right. All righty. Take care, y'all. Bye.